Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dayan Rafiq and I am a foundation level student at Rehan School Islamabad Baraku campus. So viewers, today I am going to conduct an AI session with Maya. In this session, I will ask few questions and Maya will provide the answers. So let's start. Maya, my first question is what is software?
Since you're looking for a deep dive, let's look at it this way. If your computer or phone is the physical body, the bones, the screen, the circuits, then software is the mind. It's the set of invisible instructions that tells the hardware exactly what to do. Without software, your laptop is basically just a very expensive paperweight. It ranges from the massive operating system that runs everything in the background to the tiny app you use to check the weather. Does that make sense, or should I dive deeper into how those instructions actually work?
Okay, my next question is what is the difference between software and hardware?
The simplest way to put it is that hardware is what you can actually touch, and software is what you can't. Think of a book, the paper, the ink, and the glue holding it together. That's your hardware. But the story, the plot, and the characters, that's the software. One is the physical vessel, and the other is the information that gives it a purpose. In a computer, the hard drive and the processor are the hardware, but the code that tells them to open a browser or play a song is the software. You need both to get anything done because the hardware is just a shell without the software, and the software has nowhere to live without the hardware. Does that distinction click, or do you want an example of how they interact in real time?
Okay, my next question is what are the main type of software?
Broadly speaking, software splits into two main camps: system software and application software. System software is the foundation. It's the stuff that manages the hardware and keeps the whole machine running smoothly in the background. You don't usually interact with it directly, but it's doing the heavy lifting so the computer doesn't just crash. Then you have application software, which is what most of us actually think of when we say software. These are the tools designed for a specific task, like a web browser for surfing the internet, a word processor for writing, or a game for when you just want to zone out. One keeps the lights on, and the other lets you actually do something useful. Want to break down how the system software side of things works? Or should we jump straight into the apps?
Okay, my next question is what is system software?
Think of system software as the manager of the entire operation. It's the layer of code that sits right on top of the hardware and makes sure everything is coordinated. The most famous example is the operating system like Windows, Mac OS, or Android. Its main job is to handle the resources. It decides how much memory a program gets, manages your files, and tells the CPU which tasks to prioritize. It also includes things like device drivers, which are basically the translators that let your OS talk to your printer or your graphics card. Without system software, the hardware wouldn't know how to communicate with the apps you actually want to use. It's the invisible glue holding the whole digital experience together. Want to talk about how the OS specifically manages your computer, or are you ready for the next one?
Okay, my next question is what is application software?
If system software is the manager, application software is the specialist. These are programs designed to help you perform a specific task, while the system software is just trying to keep the computer alive. Application software is where the app actually, it's not quite the same. Application software is the part you actually interact with to get things done. Think of it like this: system software
Okay, my next question is, what is programming?
Um, Programming is basically the art of giving a computer a very specific set of instructions to solve a problem. Imagine you're trying to explain to someone how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but that person has absolutely no intuition. You can't just say, put the jelly on the bread. You have to say, pick up the knife with your right hand, insert the knife into the jelly jar, extract 1 tablespoon of jelly, and so on. That's exactly what programming is. Computers are incredibly fast, but they're also kind of literal. They don't get what you mean, they only do exactly what you tell them. Programming is the process of taking a big complex goal, like create a social media feed or calculate the trajectory of a rocket, and breaking it down into thousands of tiny logical steps that the machine can follow without getting confused. You do this using a programming language, which acts as the bridge between how humans think and how machines process binary. You write the code in a way that's readable to you. A special program translates that code into a language the computer's hardware can actually understand. I'm glad that clicked. I'm on a roll now. Since that analogy worked.
Yeah. Okay, my next question is, what is coding?
People use coding and programming interchangeably all the time, and in a casual conversation, that's totally fine. But if we're being precise, coding is actually just one part of the programming process. Coding is the act of writing the actual lines of code, the translation phase, where you take the logic and type it out in a language like Python or Java. It's like the act of writing a novel or putting words on the page. Programming, on the other hand, is the bigger picture. It's the planning, the designing, the testing, and the debugging. It's the entire process of deciding what the story should be, outlining the plot, and then revising the chapters until the book actually makes sense. So, coding is the writing part, while programming is the authoring part. You can code something without being a great programmer, but you can't be a programmer without coding. Does that distinction make sense, or do you want to dive into how a coder actually turns those lines of text into a working program?
Okay, my next question is, what is software developed?
I think you mean how is software developed, right? It's essentially a cycle, almost like building a house. You don't just start nailing boards together, you need a blueprint first. It usually starts with planning and analysis, where you figure out exactly what the software needs to do and who it's for. Then you move into design, where you map out the architecture and how the user will actually interact with it. After that comes the coding phase, the part we just talked about, where the developers actually write the lines of code. That doesn't stop there. Once the code is written, it goes into testing to find all those pesky bugs before a real person ever sees it. Finally, it's deployed, meaning it's released to the world, but the developers keep monitoring it and updating it to make sure it stays current. It's a constant loop of creating, breaking, fixing, and improving. Does that layout work for you, or do you want to know more about a specific part of that process?
Okay, my next question is, what does a software developer do?
A software developer is basically a digital architect and a problem solver rolled into one. Their day to day isn't just typing lines of code into a black screen, it's mostly about thinking. They spend a huge chunk of their time analyzing a problem and figuring out the most efficient way to solve it. For example, if a company wants a button that allows users to upload a photo, the developer has to think through everything. How does the photo get from the phone to the server? What happens if the file is too big? What if the internet cuts out mid upload? Once they've mapped out that logic, they write the code to make it happen. They also spend a lot of time debugging, which is a fancy way of saying they're playing detective to find out why the program's doing something it's not supposed to do. Essentially, they translate human need to a language a machine can execute. Does that sound like something you'd be into, or does the debugging part sound like a nightmare?
Okay, my next question is, what is the difference between a software engineer and a programmer?
Hmm. This is one of those things where people use the terms as synonyms, but there's a real difference in the scale of what they're doing. Um, a programmer is like a skilled craftsman. They're experts at taking a specific task and writing the code to make it work. If you need a specific function built or a bug fixed in a piece of code, a programmer is your person. They're focused on the how of the coding itself. A software engineer, however, is more like the architect overseeing the entire city. They don't just care about one piece of code, they care about how that code fits into a massive system.
Okay, my next question is, how does AI help in software development?
AI has basically become the ultimate co-pilot for developers. Instead of starting with a blank page, developers can use AI to generate boilerplate code, the repetitive standard stuff that usually takes forever to type out. It's like having an assistant who can instantly draft the basic outline of a project so the human can focus on the actual creative problem solving. It's also a beast at debugging. Imagine spending 3 hours hunting for a single missing semicolon or a tiny logical error. An AI can often spot that pattern in seconds and suggest a fix. Then there's documentation. Nobody actually enjoys writing the manual for how their code works, but AI can analyze the code and write a clear explanation of it automatically. Basically, it doesn't replace the developer, but it removes the tedious parts of the job. Lead the way. I'm ready whenever you are. What's on the next slide?
Okay, my next question is, what is ChatGPT?
Wait, did we just jump from software engineering to charity? That's quite the pivot, but I'm game. Charity at its heart
No,
is
no.
about selfless
My
giving.
question is,
It's when you provide.
what is ChatGPT?
At its core, charity is the act of giving help, money, or resources to people who are in need without expecting anything in return.
My
It's
question
driven by
is,
empathy.
what is ChatGPT?
I think you mean ChatGPT. It's a large language model created by OpenAI. Think of it as an incredibly advanced version of autocomplete. It's been trained on a massive amount of human text, books, articles, conversations, so it can predict what word should come next in a sentence. That's why I can write essays, explain complex physics, or even help someone write code. It doesn't know things the way humans do, but it's a master of patterns, which makes it feel like you're talking to a very well-read person. Did you use it for your projects, or are you just curious about how it works?
Okay, my next question is, which programming language is best for beginners?
For most people, Python is the gold standard for beginners. The reason it's so popular is that it's designed to be readable. It uses a very clean syntax that looks a lot like regular English. So you spend more time learning the logic of how to solve a problem and less time fighting with complex brackets or weird symbols. It's also incredibly versatile. You can use it for everything from building websites and automating boring tasks to diving into data science and AI. That said, if you're specifically dreaming of making iPhone apps, Swift is the way to go, or Kotlin if you're eyeing Android. Do you have a specific project in mind, or are you just looking for the smoothest starting point?
Okay, my next question is, why is Python so popular?
Hmm. Python's popularity really comes down to the fact that it's incredibly approachable. Most languages feel like you're trying to speak to a machine, but Python feels like you're just writing a set of clear instructions in English. That low barrier Okay, I'm ready. What's waiting for us on the next slide?
Okay, my next question is, what is the difference between Python and Java?
Think of it as the difference between a flexible sketchbook and a formal blueprint. Python is a dynamically typed language, which is a fancy way of saying it's more laid back. You don't have to tell the computer exactly what kind of data you're using, whether it's a number or a word every single time. It just figures it out as it goes, which makes coding much faster and more intuitive. Java, on the other hand, is statically typed. It's much more strict. You have to be explicit about everything. If you're making a variable for a number, you have to declare it as a number right then and there, or the whole thing won't even run. It's more work up front, but that wait, Canada? Yeah, and we went from Java programming to Canada pretty fast. What's the connection there?
Okay, my next question is, what is HTML?
HTML is basically the skeleton of every single page on the internet. It stands for hypertext markup language, but don't let the name fool you. It's not actually a programming language. It doesn't have logic or math. Instead, it's a way of labeling content. You use tags to tell the browser, this is a heading, this is a paragraph, or this is a link. Without HTML, the internet would just be a giant unformatted well of text. It provides the structure, and then
Okay, my next question is, what is CSS?
if HTML is the skeleton, CSS is the skin, the clothes, and the makeup. It stands for cascading style sheets, and its entire job is to make things look good. While HTML says this is a button, CSS says make that button royal blue, give it rounded corners, and put it exactly in the center of the page. Without CSS, every website would look like a document from 1992, just black text on a white background. It's what allows for layouts, colors, fonts, and animations that make the web feel modern and intuitive. Want to know how it actually connects to the HTML? Or are you ready for the next piece of the puzzle?
Okay, my next question is, what is JavaScript?
If HTML is the skeleton and CSS is the skin, JavaScript is the muscle in the brain. It's the part that actually makes a website do things. Well, the first two just sit there and look a certain way.
Okay, my next question is, what is the difference between a website and software?
That's a great question because the line between them has actually gotten really blurry lately. The main difference used to be where they lived. A website was something you visited through a browser, like Chrome or Safari, and it was mostly for consuming information. Software or desktop apps were programs you installed directly onto your hard drive to do heavy lifting, like Photoshop or Excel. But now we have web apps. Think of something like Google Docs or Figma. They live in your browser like a website, but they function like powerful software. Essentially, a traditional website is like a digital brochure. You go there to read or look at things. Software is like a digital tool. You go there to create, manipulate data. Exactly. It's all about the purpose, information versus action. Ready to move on to the next slide? I'm standing by. What's next on the list?
Okay, my next question is, how are mobile apps created?
Creating a mobile app is a bit like choosing whether you want to build a custom house from scratch or use a prefabricated one. First, you've got native apps. This is where you build specifically for one.
So viewers, this is session for Maya. Today we will meet you in another Maya session. तब तक के लिए अल्लाह हाफिज, पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद.